Anyway, joining us now is Wyoming Senator John Barrasso, one of these wonderful people who gave their lives, was from the great state of Wyoming. Senator Barrasso, as always, sir, we welcome you. I've known you a very long time. This is a tough story. Why don't you begin on that?
Well, Riley McCullum, a 20-year-old Marine from Jackson, Wyoming, a high school wrestler, known by many all across the state. We lost a great one. You know, I talked to his dad, as his dad always said, he was red, white, and blue from the beginning. He's joined the Marines on his 18th birthday, and he leaves behind a wife who is pregnant and due with their first child next month. In talking to his dad, Jim, you know, he ended our conversation by saying, tonight in heaven, Riley is guarding the gates of heaven. And and they went back to Dover yesterday for the dignified transfer of the remains. Riley's wife met with President Biden. The family reports afterwards that it was disappointing, that this meeting was shallow and scripted, and mostly he talked about his son, Beau. Larry, these heroes, they need more than that. They're getting more than that from the American people. There's a GoFundMe page for Riley McCullum and his family. I know it's raised over $500,000 so far. And I would just say I have much more faith in the American people than I do in the President of the United States right now.
You know, Senator, I always wonder, you know, these troops, servicewomen, servicemen in Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, etc., Coast Guard, you know, they do their duty. Sometimes their duty means, inadvertently, I hope, carrying out the mistakes of the civilian leadership, maybe even carrying out the mistakes of the military leadership. We won't know all that until this thing is thoroughly investigated. But the wonderful thing is that they do their duty. And that's just a phenomenal, wonderful thing about the American military and, you know, every man and woman that serves in it.
Yeah. Well, Ronald Reagan said it best: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It's not something we inherited. It's something that has to be fought for, protected, defended, and then handed down to the next generation to do the same. And from my many trips overseas to be with our men and women in uniform, they are the best, and we are so very fortunate to have them out there every day fighting for us to protect our freedoms here at home.
Absolutely. Senator, looking ahead, can you and others work for essentially a covert finding or some intelligence finding that would allow, first of all, designate the Taliban as a foreign terrorist organization, an FTO, and then have one of these findings? They're going to be highly classified, as they must, but that would provide resources for people and intelligence for people to keep helping those who were left behind, both Americans and Afghans who allied with us and NATO, to continue to get them out of there and continue to help. My understanding is it requires a designation. I'm just reading this op-ed article, Foreign Terrorist Organization, FTO, and then that opens the door to intel and resources. Can you do anything about that, sir?
Well, I certainly support what we're talking about doing. We should not leave that country until we get every American out. The idea that President Biden is using the calendar on the wall instead of the conditions on the ground to abandon Afghanistan tomorrow is beyond anyone that I've talked to in the Senate or anyone I've talked to in Wyoming. I don't know in the history of our country that we have ever done that. This has been handled terribly, whether people are for leaving troops in Afghanistan, and I was all the way through, or, you know, a light touch, a small remaining footprint of American troops to keep the lid on, or whether people wanted to take everyone out. No matter how you stand on that issue, this was done terribly, terrible execution. I don't think we should leave. If we do, we need to do everything we can to help not just the American citizens that are there, everyone, those friends. I've heard from people around the country and some around the world who have people on the ground. They're trying to get them out of Afghanistan right now. Somebody that's involved with the Afghan women's soccer team said the team is mortified that if they are left there, they are going to be trafficked for sex, these women athletes, by the Taliban if they don't get out of the country. I mean, that's who the Taliban are. They now have weapons, you know, what we left behind, the $85 billion worth of weapons, MRAPs, tanks, Black Hawk helicopters. We left money behind, arms, and the amazing thing is they already have a funding network. They have a criminal network of drugs and human trafficking. Plus the Taliban, along with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, they now have a willingness to fight that is now on steroids after the fact that they now have the entire country of Afghanistan to use as a platform in which to attack the United States.
So I would think, just the last one, sir, it would be essential to make the designation a foreign terrorist organization and not to recognize the government, which would, you know, at least keep them away from monetary resources, IMF, World Bank, Treasury, and the banking system, and also to give a hand to those, you know, there's a lot of groups acting on their own, to give a hand to them for getting the Americans, the rest of the Americans and their allies out. I would think, you know, designate them foreign terrorists and do not recognize them. I mean, does the Bidens get this, John? I mean, do they understand this? The rest of the world seems to. Our guys don't even talk about it.
Well, a couple of things there with regard to the money in the IMF and the World Bank and all of those things. Yes, that's important. That's just window dressing. The terrorists have the big prize, which is the country on which to operate. And when you ask, does the president understand any of this? Look, what the world is now witnessing is a weak and wobbly president of the United States, unable to cope with the issues of 2021. Larry, you and I have talked in the past about issues where this administration, and specifically the president, has failed, whether it's inflation, the border, crime in the cities, but never before have I been as really concerned and disgusted with the way that this president has been running the country as what I've seen in the last 2 weeks with regard to Afghanistan.
All right. Senator John Barrasso, thank you, sir. We appreciate it very much.